Hi guys, today let us take up the neural system. As the first part of the neural system, let us talk about neuron. So neuron is the structural and functional unit of the neural system. So this sentence is given in your NCERT book. So it is the structural and functional unit of the whole nervous system or neural system. And then what does it do in our body? What does it do in the central nervous system? So electrically, the neurons are electrically excitable cells, and they process and transmit information through electrical and chemical signals. They produce impulses and they conduct impulses by electrical and chemical signals. It is the function of the neuron. Third point, it is called as the input and output device. So it produces the impulses and it transmits the impulses from the brain to the body. So it is an input and output device. Next point, you must know that the origin of neuron is ectodermal. So you know in embryology, when the embryo develops, there will be three layers: ectoderm, mesoderm and endoderm. All the parts of the body during organogenesis develop from these three layers: ectoderm, endoderm and mesoderm. Here this neuron is ectodermal in origin. It originates from the ectoderm. It produces electrochemical signals. Another important point, interesting point about the neuron is that it is the longest cell in our body. It's even up to 3 meters long. It is the longest cell in our body. And then, if you take the neuron, another special character is that they won't divide. The neurons never divide. What's the reason for that? They don't have centriole. The centriole is the actual organ for the formation of poles during the cell division. The centrioles are absent in the neurons, so they won't divide. They never divide. Another interesting thing. So how many neurons in our body? Can you guess and tell me? These are the facts you must know. So human brain has more than 100 billion neurons. So our human brain has more than 100 billion neurons in the brain. So these are all about the general facts regarding the need point of view for neuron. Now let us come to the structure of neuron. You can see the diagram of a neuron. The neuron has got three parts. One, cyton or cell body with dendrites, axon, and then axon terminal. So three main parts. One, cell body or the cyton with the dendrites. Second part, the axon, and the last part, axon terminal. Let us take up one by one. First, cell body. This is the cell body or cyton. In the cell body, you can see a nucleus. The cell body is uninucleated. It contains cytoplasm. There are cytoplasm here. This cytoplasm has got two types of granules or two types of fibrils. One, Nissl granules and neurofibrils. You can see here Nissl granules and neurofibrils, Nissl granules and neurofibrils. So Nissl's granules contain ribosome plus endoplasmic reticulum. So what is the main function? Naturally, you know, protein synthesis. So Nissl granules contain ribosome with endoplasmic reticulum, so they involve in the protein synthesis. Then neurofibrils. These are the microfibrils inside the cytoplasm of the cell body. What is the function of these neurofibrils? They conduct the impulses inside the neuron. They conduct the impulses inside the axon. So this is about the cell body or cyton. Then dendrites arise from the cell body. They are variable in number, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, or we'll see when we take up the types of neurons in the next video. They are variable in number. Dendrites are variable in number, and they get thinner with every branching. It is thick here, it is thin here, so it becomes thinner with the branching. Then coming to axon, axon is single unit having constant diameter. So it's a single unit long and having a constant diameter, right? So you can see the parts of the axon: skew-on cells, out-rich myelin sheath, axoplasm inside the axon, outer layer axolemma, next to that neurilemma, and next to that myelin sheath. So you can see this portion is the axoplasm. Cytoplasm of the axon is called as the axoplasm, and the outer lining of the axon is the axolemma. Next to that axolemma is another layer called neurilemma, covering the skew-on cells, outer which you have the myelin sheath produced by the skew-on cells. The skew-on cells are actually protective in function. They give protection to the axon. They form an insulation. The myelin sheath in the skew-on cell form an insulation of this axon. If this is axon, it surrounds the axon. It insulates the axon and gives protection. Right. I said there is a myelin sheath surrounding the axon. There are two types of axons. One, myelinated and non-myelinated. What do you mean by that? If myelin sheath is present, that is myelinated. If myelin sheath is absent, that is non-myelinated. Right. Where are they present? This myelinated axon is present in the cranial and the spinal nerves. Central nervous system, you get the cranial and spinal nerves. This cranial and spinal nerves got the myelin sheath. So myelinated axon is present in the spinal nerves and the cranial nerves. You must know. These are all, every point is very important for the NEET point of view. Mind you guys, non-myelinated sheath, non-myelinated axon is present in somatic nervous system and the autonomic nervous system. Somatic nervous system and the autonomic nervous system consisting of the peripheral nervous system. So myelinated sheath in cranial nerves and spinal nerves, non-myelinated in autonomic nerves and somatic nerves. This you must know regarding the myelinated and non-myelinated axon. Then this portion, the neck portion of the axon is called as the axon hillock. That portion is called the axon hillock. This is actually the trigger zone. This portion is the trigger zone. In this portion, the action potential are produced. That's why it's called as the trigger zone. So the neck of the axon is called as the axon hillock. This is called as the trigger zone because in this portion only the action potential produced by the axon is transferred into the axon. It's conducted into the axon. So this portion is called as the trigger zone. Axon hillock is the trigger zone. Then finally we come to this portion, axon terminals. Axon terminals. The axon terminals have got synaptic knob, bulb-like structures, knob-like structures, synaptic knobs which contain the synaptic vesicles. So this portion is the synaptic knob-like structure, inside which you get the synaptic vesicles. These synaptic vesicles release chemical transmitters during transmission. Actually they produce acetyl choline. Acetyl choline is the chemical produced by these synaptic vesicles. This acetyl choline or the chemicals generate new impulses in neurons which are connected to the synaptic bulb. So you can see another neuron here, next neuron. The dendrites are connected to this synaptic cleft or synaptic knobs. So they generate new impulses in the neurons which are connected to the synaptic bulbs. So you get a space in between this synaptic knob and the next neuron. That space is called as the synapse. That gap is called as the synapse or synaptic cleft or synaptic cleft. So here from cyton, this is connected here to the axon terminal, and this in this synapse, this synaptic cleft, new impulses are transferred to the next neuron by the chemical transmitters, for example acetyl choline. So here the dendrites get the impulses, comes inside the cyton cell body, and then they are conducted inside the axon. So if you see the axon, in some places there is no myelin sheath, absence of myelin sheath. That space is called as the node of Ranvier. Node of Ranvier. So the place of the axon where you won't get the myelin sheath is called as the node of Ranvier. So the impulses are conducted quickly or jumping from nodes to node, from this node to next node, next node, next node. So that type of jumping, that type of conduction of impulse is called as the saltatory conduction. You must know saltatory conduction. So this is about these main points.